This is the Right Guys podcast. Oh my gosh, we are going to bring you the worst fake news story ever. And now your hosts, Josh Hammerling and Max McGuire.
Welcome back, Right Guys podcast. Happy Monday. Oh my gosh, this story is one that won't go away, and the mainstream media refuses to let it go away. It doesn't help that Donald Trump is bringing the president of El Salvador into the Oval Office to answer questions about it. But the more we learn about this case, the more we see just how fake the fake news has been. Let's just dive right into it.
Yeah, go for it.
I'll call him a gentleman. I'll be generous. We are looking at Abrego Garcia, Kilmar Abrego Garcia. This is an illegal alien who was deported to El Salvador. I want to say about a month ago-ish, and on suspicion that he was an MS-13 gang member. El Salvador received him and said, you know what we do with MS-13 gang members? We imprison them.
Oof.
And he is in El Salvador's basically gang terrorism prison, which is not fun to be in. And his attorney here in the United States is trying to get him brought back. Supreme Court heard this case, or heard the appeal process, and the media reported that the Supreme Court had ordered the Trump administration to bring him back. And I didn't even read the case. I just saw the headlines. I was like, oh, wow, that's interesting. How's that going to work? Turns out it was fake news. Fake news. The Supreme Court basically told the Trump administration to, quote unquote, facilitate this man's return to the United States. But facilitate doesn't mean what the far left wants it to mean. In the immigration context, all facilitate means is that the United States will not interfere with it. I talk about this in my book, The Conservative's Guide to Winning Every Immigration Argument.
What?
To facilitate someone's entry into the United States means if they show up at a port of entry, they won't be turned away.
Oh, so we don't have to pick them up, physically carry them here, drop them back off someplace in Texas.
Sometimes if someone has a real claim to be here, the United States might send a plane. But basically, facilitate just means we will not deport him. If he shows up to the United States at a port of entry or in an airport, we'll let him in. That's what it means for the government to facilitate someone's entry into the United States, because the alternative, what the left wants it to mean, apparently, is that Donald Trump needs to send commandos to El Salvador, break this suspected terrorist out of an El Salvadorian prison, and smuggle this suspected gang member terrorist back into the United States, where he would then be allowed to live here as an illegal alien, somehow protected from being deported. That is not what facilitated return means.
Why do I feel like there's an AOC moment that's going to pop up here out of nowhere? Or like a Democrat statement that's going to come out with something to the effect of racist Trump administration told to return El Salvadorian or American El Salvadorian citizen. Like, where is he from? Yeah. To the United States, right?
This is kind of the propaganda that's coming out. Listen, he's a cute kid. I feel bad for the kid. I feel bad for the American citizen spouse. That sucks. I mean, we can go through the timetable. Abrego Garcia came to the United States when he was 16 years old. And he claimed he was fleeing gang violence. Now what the media isn't reporting is that the local gang forced him into their gang. So he was not just fleeing gang violence. He was a member of the gang under force, according to this reporting, and then fled because the gang was going after his family.
Jeez.
That's true. That sucks. But he came to the United States illegally. Illegally came to the United States. In 2019, Abrego Garcia went to a Home Depot looking to illegally work in this country as an illegal alien. And he was basically arrested by county police. And they asked him if he was a gang member. He told them that he wasn't. but
he was.
a confidential informant said that he was. They never prosecuted him for being a gang member. And Abrego Garcia applied for an immigration judge to seek asylum. He wanted asylum. Oh, you're going to catch me in the United States illegally living here, illegally working here? Well, my get out of jail free card, the way it's worked for years, I claim asylum. It reminds me of the old Office episode where Michael Scott is having money problems. So he goes out and just says, I claim bankruptcy, and thinking I'll get him out of it. It's kind of how illegal aliens game the system. And for a long time, it's worked for them. Now, Abrego Garcia did not get asylum, but what the court did do is it granted him protection, basically a withholding, saying that he had a well-founded fear that if he was returned back to El Salvador, he could face gang violence. So he was in the country illegally. He was not granted asylum, but because he had a well-founded fear, he was offered limited protection against being deported back to El Salvador. Now, we don't know everything about this guy, but when I read that he was basically pressed into a gang and fled, and he's afraid if he goes back, he'll face gang persecution. In what world would a gang go after a kid who was 12 when he fled? Like, this is what doesn't make sense to me. Now, maybe they have really long memories. That's entirely possible, that they have the memory of elephants, and that this 12-year-old was so important to them, they remember him. And the minute he goes back, he'll be persecuted. The alternative is that he is a member of the gang. He's a member. They know he's still a member. And going back, he would face persecution from other gang members. This would be like, no, Your Honor, you can't send this member of the Bloods to LA because he will face gang persecution from the Crips. Well, why would he face gang persecution from the Crips? Because he's in the Bloods, right? I mean, like, that's kind of what this sounds like to me.
Yeah.
The average person going back, like the average person can't say the minute I get off the plane, there's going to be a hit on me. Right? I mean, he left when he was 12. This reads to me that there's something going on here. He's either still in the gang now, or he has family member ties in the gang. He's not just a tourist who's worried about gang violence if he goes back home.
Or those gang members have kept copious records in their database about the 12-year-old that ran away, right? Like, how many guys was he hanging out with at the time we'll even remember him, or alive? Because if you live the gangster lifestyle, like, there's fresh blood in all the time for a reason.
Yeah, right? Very short life expectancy. Maybe they have an oral history. Maybe they tell the yarns of the 12-year-olds who got away.
In like a song and dance. Yeah.
Like Homer, like an epic yarn, right? I mean, that's why this is silly. A confidential informant said that he was a gang member in MS-13. Government didn't prosecute him because the government doesn't prosecute this stuff. The government deports you. We don't want you in prison. Why would we put a violent gang member in an American prison? Send it back.
Leave him here.
Right?
Yeah. Send him home.
Send it back. So he receives the withholding, the protection from deportation. And that was on the books since 2019, 2020. Fast forward to this year. Donald Trump declares MS-13 to be a foreign terrorist organization. All of a sudden, ICE is actively looking for anyone in the system, even remotely tied to MS-13.
Yeah. And his name's going to come up.
And the minute they find him even remotely connected to MS-13, he's gone, right? It's across the case. Imagine day after 9/11, Al-Qaeda, public enemy number one. Taliban, public enemy number one. Imagine the government says, oh, well, we have a bunch of people who were suspected to be in Al-Qaeda. They're illegal aliens in the United States. Oh, but we're not allowed to deport them because they haven't been convicted before a jury of their peers. No, you err on the side of caution if you're in the country illegally, and we even have a smidgen of a belief that you're part of a terrorist organization. And we can catch you, you're gone. We're not going to wait for you to commit your act of terror so we can charge you and convict you. That's not how it works. That's just not how it works. So the minute Donald Trump declared MS-13 to be a foreign terrorist organization, he was basically on the chopping block. Now, he wasn't supposed to be in the first wave of deported people, right? Because there's a lot of people that should have been. There was one lawyer who, for the DOJ, told the court that he was mistakenly deported. That lawyer has since, I believe, been fired because that was not the position of the government. And yet the media ran with it.
Of course.
The interesting thing about the protection from deportation for a credible, well-founded fear, the withholding, is that the minute it was declared a foreign terrorist organization, the court record saying he was suspected to be MS-13 overruled the withholding. Right? So if MS-13 had been a declared terrorist organization when that case had gone before a judge, an immigration judge, they wouldn't have been allowed to give him protection. You can't give deportation protection to suspected members of terrorist organizations. Even if it isn't proven, you can't give it to suspected, right? So the minute they were officially labeled a terrorist organization, he became deportable.
Wow.
So the Trump administration deported him. He is now in El Salvador. El Salvador got him and said, well, we don't want an MS-13 gang member just walking around our streets, so we are going to put you in prison. And El Salvador is operating under a state of emergency for gang violence. And they've basically suspended a lot of their rights to the point where they can incarcerate people for a pretty lengthy term before they have to charge them. Like if they suspect someone is a gang member or terrorist, they can lock them up to give time to build the case. Whether you agree with that or not, that's El Salvador's law. So that's where this guy is.
All right. So you've laid out kind of the story about how and why. So where does this narrative start showing up that I'm seeing everywhere about trying to bring this guy back as though he's entitled to live here, or that he's got all these protections? Because the Dems picked this story up right away, and we're just trying to use it as an angle to say, look, Donald Trump's going to deport everybody. He doesn't care who you are. He's going to snatch you up out of the street. He's going to put you on a plane, and he's going to put you in a prison in another country, right? And it's like that lie got around the world overnight. Like the moment the story broke, that's all I could read on all of the freaking news sites, right? Like it's just coming up over and over and over. It's all over CNN. You know, the Dems are sitting there tweeting on it, right? And how many people start believing that narrative that they put out? And it hits quick, right? So now there's this groundswell out there of trying to bring this guy back. And then the Supreme Court comes back with their decision, and suddenly it's, now you got to bring him home. Now you got to bring him home.
So it was the district court's opinion that the Trump administration has to bring him home. It was the Trump administration's argument that this was an illegal alien who was lawfully deported. He is now under the control of a sovereign foreign nation, and we don't have control over him. You can't tell us to bring him home. You can't tell the United States to move someone they don't have control over. Right. And what the U.S. argued before the Supreme Court is they said the district court shouldn't even be allowed to tell the government, the U.S. government, to ask for him back, because that is the judge basically forcing the United States to engage in a certain type of international diplomacy, which is exclusively under the purview of the executive branch. Right. Imagine a judge declaring that the United States must sign a treaty or must declare war, right? Or must lift an arms embargo. That's not how it works. The executive branch engages in the diplomacy. So the Trump administration says, we don't have this guy. We lawfully deported him. El Salvador has him. If El Salvador wanted to give him back, I guess we take him, but we don't want to ask for him back, and you can't force us to ask for him back. And it's funny, we're going to play the clip. Bukele, El Salvador's president, was in the same room as Trump. And Trump's like, yeah, if they give him back, I guess we'll take him. And Bukele's like, yeah, no, we're not giving him back.
And just a total slap in the face, right? And it's funny to kind of watch him panic, because after that kind of, even after that comes out, people start going to X, and they're trying to call Trump a fascist for this, right? Like he's some sort of monster deporter, that he's going after people of color, going after brown people, trying to send them around the world. Like that's what ends up coming out from this, right? Have you seen the upswell of fake racism shopping here? I mean, it's been wild, man. And the thing that's trending out there is 9-0 SCOTUS, because they're the ones that ruled, that said he has to bring him back and that he was illegally removed. And that's
It
somehow
doesn't
the
say
language
you have
saying
to bring back.
that's what they're
Doesn't say
not.
you have to bring back.
They don't give a crap. They are using it to
Yeah.
call him like the next Hitler, man. I mean,
Yeah.
it's wild
I mean,
to read all.
let's look at let's look at two of these headlines. I mean, you see how the media is reporting on it. This is Politico. El Salvador won't return wrongly deported Maryland man.
He's not from Maryland, though.
He lives in Maryland. They say he lives in Maryland, so that makes him a Maryland man. Doesn't matter that he's in the United States illegally, right?
He's not a citizen. I mean, they're trying to attribute something to him that doesn't exist.
Even New York Post ads. Even the New York Post says El Salvador president says deported Maryland man with alleged MS-13 ties can't be brought back to the United States despite Supreme Court ruling. Question is preposterous.
Wow.
And here is the answer that he gave when he was asked what steps he'll take to facilitate the return. He says, I hope you are not suggesting that I smuggle terrorists into the United States. Of course, I am not going to do it. The question is preposterous. I don't have the power to return him to the United States. But that's the news story.
Yeah.
Right? That's the news story. Listen, he was a father. I feel bad for his kid, right? I feel bad for his kid. If I lived in the United States and I was illegal in the United States and my wife was a U.S. citizen and she was pregnant, you know what I'd say? Let's go to my country. You can keep your U.S. citizenship. I can live there for free, and we can grow up there. The kid will be an American because you're an American, right? Why continue to live in the United States illegally and open yourself up to this vulnerability? That's the whole thing. We're like, oh, you're separating families. No, you can move together. There's no requirement that someone stay in the United States. You can be an expat. If you fall in love with a foreigner who's in the United States illegally and you want to have a life together, the only way to legally do it is outside the U.S.
But they're acting like he's been a naturalized U.S. born citizen since the moment he left the womb, right? I mean, what the dishonesty by the legacy media just like they're trying to establish that he's been an American that has been sent illegally to another country, right? That is what they're hoping will stick. And people are going to fall for it. I mean, they're already falling for it. All you got to do is go to the socials and look at the blow-ups over this. And nobody wants to hear the truth on it. I mean, no one's going to report the way that you're reporting on this right now about it. And they're going to let this lie continue.
We are facing a real crisis in this country of judges truly believing that they can force the United States to go in a certain direction because that's what they want. This happened just 4 days ago. U.S. judge to block Trump from revoking thousands of migrants' legal status. So what happened under Biden, we've talked to this for a lot, is illegal aliens came to the country. They said, I want asylum, right? They were giving a court date, usually years down the road. And what the Biden administration basically did is saying, hey, we don't want to hold you, so we're going to grant you parole to basically live about in the United States until your hearing. They used executive discretion to grant these illegal aliens claiming quote unquote asylum, grant them parole. Well, the thing with that is anything that's discretionary can be rolled back discretionarily.
Yeah.
So the Trump administration said, okay, all you illegal aliens living in the United States that Biden said you could stay because he didn't want to prosecute you, we want to prosecute you. So please leave. And there was an email sent out to everyone who had used the CBP One app to basically gain this. The email said, your parole has been rescinded. You have 7 days, I think it was 7 days to leave the United States unless you have other protections allowing you to stay.
Wow.
This judge has declared, no, Trump can't do that.
Yes, you can.
U.S.
It's well
District
within
Judge Indira U.S. District Judge Indira Talwani. Now, listen, I'm not a racist. I like people of all races, colors, creeds. That to me is the most American sounding name ever. Not
Yeah.
Very interesting that it seems someone who is either an immigrant or a child of immigrants is just supplanting the U.S. executive branch, their ability to dictate policy. I want to find the reasoning.
They're hardcore liberals.
Where's the reason?
I was going to go with that, or they have no scope.
What she said is, so the judge said that the law focused on people who illegally cross the border and providing means to remove them on an expedited basis, not individuals who were granted permission to enter the United States under a grant of parole. She said what you're prioritizing is not people coming over the border, but the people who followed the rules. So basically, CBP One app, you reach the border, CBP One app say, I want to come in. The Biden administration says, okay, come in illegally, and we just won't prosecute you for it. You'll be granted parole until your hearing. Right. So
Yeah.
she's completely twisting the logic. And no, if you're in the United States illegally, I'm sorry that a previous president told you could come here. You should have known that you had limited time. It was well documented, well advertised that there was going to be a change of the guard. But this judge has declared that no, they have to be allowed to stay on parole. There was another case where the government revoked the TPS standing, which was the temporary protected status, which is basically, there was an earthquake in El Salvador 30 years ago. That means anyone illegal from El Salvador can be here forever. Trump administration revoking it. A judge intervened and said, no, we don't think that you thought it through enough. You didn't give a good enough reason. Well, no, the reason is it's unnecessary. The reason is it's not unnecessary. Like, the reason is it's unnecessary. Like, I'm sorry that there was a hurricane 25 years ago. I checked on Google Earth. It looks fine.
Did they get the USAID for that hurricane? Like, there was probably some opportunities to go back in there, but they just kept ignoring them.
I can understand in the short term, like, I'm an illegal alien. You caught me, but there's a hurricane right now. You can't send me back. I can understand that. Like people in Haiti, when Haiti was hit by a hurricane and the earthquakes and everything, there was nothing left. It was just rubble. I can understand the humanitarian reason not to just dump a plane load of people into Haiti immediately after a natural disaster. But it's almost like no one's following up to see if it's time to send them back yet. Right? Like, they rebuilt everything. They fixed this. They have running water now. We can do it. No one ever follows up, and it just becomes this long-term, unending amnesty. Trump shot it down, and a judge intervened last week and said, no, we don't think that your reason is good enough. He can give whatever reason he wants.
He can. And then that becomes, it's all delay tactics. We know that. But at some point, they're going to start going after some of the oddest things to attack Trump in court with, right? What if he starts giving executive orders and somebody doesn't like him and they go after that? At what point do they stop trying to neuter the executive branch? Because that's what this does. It's trying to take one of the co-equal branches of government and make it accountable to circuit judges, to state judges, he's technically not subject to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court's equal to him. So, like, how far can this stuff keep going? Is there going to be a stop to it? And that means every person that was in a state could be called a Maryland man or woman, and they were illegally deported by the reasoning that these judges are giving. It's so open-ended.
This judge, Indira Talwani, was born to immigrant parents. She received U.S. citizenship because they gave birth on U.S. soil. She's an anchor baby. I guess you could argue it.
Yeah.
The reasoning, this U.S. district judge, you want to talk about district court opinions, not that shouldn't be allowed to be far reaching. Talk about nationwide injunctions, things like that. One judge in Massachusetts has single-handedly protected 500,000 illegal aliens from being deported.
How they can't wield that kind of power? It does not
It's
exist
insane.
for them.
It's
Then
insane.
why are they allowing the injunctions to happen? Why isn't the Supreme Court stepping in and saying, listen, you guys just don't have this authority. You never have. So at what point are they going to step up and talk? At what point are they going to do the job of the co-equal branch of government?
This is the same judge in Massachusetts who ruled a couple of years ago that a student has no First Amendment right to wear a T-shirt that says there are only two genders, because wearing that T-shirt, quote, invades the rights of others.
Holy crap! That's the same judge.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man, this is a stalwart liberal making this. Is she trying to run for office later?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Wow.
I don't know. Interesting though, right?
I'm a little
It's
shocked.
so funny how all these
not.
judges that intervene, to stop Trump from doing something, the minute it's funny that the minute you just scrape the surface and you're like, well, what's the last big case they heard? It's always the most batshit crazy leftist thing you've ever seen in your life. And every single time, these judges, it's insane.
And the timing, and then, like you said, that some people should be recusing themselves from some of these cases, and they don't do that. It's like they want to be in the heart of this battle. It's like they want to start a showdown between the executive and state judges. Like that's a wild battle. It's one they know ultimately they can't win, but it doesn't mean they can't fight that battle, because it's all about delaying. Let's not let him do anything in his first 100 days or 200 days or 300 days.
Going back to this first case that we were talking about, Abrego Garcia, there are leftists now urging the judge to hold Donald Trump in contempt of court, hold the DOJ lawyers in contempt of court.
But that's their
Even
job.
Though the Supreme Court said in their decision, you cannot force the executive branch to go get him. They don't control him. You have no control over foreign policy. The left is still demanding it. These are crazy people, Josh. And you know what I'm seeing? I'm seeing a trend. The same people calling for a suspected terrorist to be welcomed back into the U.S. with a red carpet. Those people generally, I'm seeing, are the same people saying that that Carmelo Anthony, the murderer of Austin Metcalf, that he was a hero and that he was exercising self-defense. These are the same people. That was our last episode. These are the same people. The craziness is spreading.
Or it's heavily funded by a group of individuals who know where to spread the money in the right places to get the right people talking. But that would be a conspiracy that we couldn't prove. But man, it sure does feel that way. I was also reading that they're trying to make the claim that that guy is dead and nobody's seen him alive. And somebody had,
they report he's alive.
Came through. Yeah, but the story just takes off, right? They just start with, not only did he deported, now the guy's gone, no one can find him, right? And then that's the thing that ends up being out there. That's the story that ends up hitting everybody's feed. And to see these same players say the same things, there's like a playbook to it almost. You know what I mean? In the Summer of Love, there was all those bricks that would always show up before an event happens. Right now, you can always get the same group of people that you know are going to rule on cases. A lot of these radical DAs and stuff that have been brought in by Soros groups. Like, is there a black hat, or what do we call them? Like a dark organization that starts to create civil unrest through media and people meeting for riots and stuff like that? I mean, that would be crazy. But I don't think outside of the realm of possibility, if you're a billionaire, you only need a couple $100,000 to get a group running through downtown throwing bricks, right? So do you have something like that you're going to reveal? Do you have
no? I'm just
like,
I'm really struggling. The left's whole argument always disappears when you take it to its illogical, absurd end. and I kind of talked about at the front, what does this district judge think they can order the Trump administration to do?
Whatever they want.
El Salvador doesn't want to release a suspected terrorist into El Salvador to then get on a plane to come to the United States or to then walk back, I guess, up through Central America. What if they won't release them? What does this judge expect Trump to do? What does this judge think she can force, or they can force Judge Trump to do?
This feels like
It sounds like they want him to go and have a prison escape, break him out, abduct him.
This feels like it's right out of the Communist Manifesto. Make those that are committing the illegal acts the protected class.
Yeah.
Go after your enemies, right? Label them as the radicals as you are radical yourself. I mean, this has communism written all over it, at least those operating behind it. So the question becomes, are these people communist judges? Are they trying to change culture and law from the bench? Are they trying to legislate from the bench with this stuff? In an effect, or in an attempt to neuter the executive?
It almost feels like I don't know all about Abrego Garcia's past. I don't know. As I said at the start, he left when he was 12 because he was being pressed into a gang. I don't think that the gang has that long of a memory. I don't think they're sharing the oral history, gang leader to gang leader, of the 12-year-old who got away. I don't think it's legitimate for him to say that he has a fear of gang reprisals unless he still has some connection to a gang that has a rival down there, right? But the way he's being described, that he is a father. Yeah, he's a father. He's a Maryland man.
Yeah.
Right? He is an asylum seeker. They say asylum seeker. Don't mention that it was denied, right? It's almost like Argentinian father fights deportation back to Germany. He's a Nazi war criminal. Right? Argentinian father, right? No. Argentinian father, right? People can come to other countries and claim asylum. It happens all the time, right? A couple of years ago, they got a Rwandan guy who participated in the genocide in Rwanda. They caught him in the United States. He claimed that he was fleeing persecution, right? It happens all the time. ISIS fighters snuck into the refugee streams into Europe, claiming to be refugees. People make these claims all the time when in reality, they are the perpetrators of the very violence they are claiming to flee, right? Now, I cannot for certainty say that this Abrego Garcia guy is that. I have my suspicions because, again, I don't think they're really looking for the 12-year-old who got away 16 years ago. No. If he's worried about reprisals, it's because it's something he did more recently. I can't get over the whitewashing of it. And even let's play a little bit of the clip because you pulled it. It's about 5 minutes long. We'll stop and start it. But this was the exchange, and it was just masterful. Trump's pointing to different members of the cabinet saying, you explain. Let's play that clip, Josh.
Let me put it on stage here.
Let's hear the question from this very low.
Here we go.
Low-rated anchor at CB.
President Trump, do you plan to ask President Bukele to help return the man who your administration says was mistakenly deported? The man who was mistakenly deported to El Salvador?
Well, let me ask Pam, would you answer that question?
Here it
Sure,
goes.
President. First and foremost, he was illegally in our country. He had been illegally in our country. And in 2019, two courts, an immigration court and an appellate immigration court, ruled that he was a member of MS-13 and he was illegally in our country. Right now, it was additional paperwork had needed to be done. That's up to El Salvador if they want to return him. That's not up to us. The Supreme Court ruled, President, that if, as El Salvador wants to return him, this is international matters, foreign affairs, if they wanted to return him, we would facilitate it, meaning provide a plane.
So will you return him, President Bukele?
So look at the president. He's just there smiling, right? I mean, they're talking about all these hypotheticals. Like, if El Salvador would send him back, I guess we'd help. And he's just smiling over there in the corner. Like, it's very obvious he's not sending this guy back. And I think that's an important clarification that she made. I explained earlier that this guy had sought asylum. His asylum claim was rejected, but he was given basically temporary protections from deportation because he had a credible fear, a real fear that he could be persecuted or hurt or harmed if he went back. That protection, that withholding, disappeared the minute the MS-13 was named a terrorist organization. The missing paperwork she's talking about is that the government is supposed to go back to the judge, say, hey, he's MS-13 terrorist organization. You got to lift it. The judge has a hearing, does all that, lifts it because they have to, and then he's deported. They skipped that step. You know, it sucks. It sucks that they skipped that step. But again, if this was September 12th, 2001, and the government knew of suspected Al-Qaeda or suspected Taliban living in the United States, I don't think they'd be rushing to make sure all of the paperwork got filed. I think they'd be rushing to get them the hell out of our country. And the people I've seen who are the most adamantly in this guy's corner are the ones who reject the definition that MS-13 is a terrorist organization, right? That Tren de Aragua is a terrorist organization. They argue that that's ridiculous. Oh, they're just gangs. What was that? What was that line? Who was it that said it in Colorado? JD Vance was on one of the news shows, and JD Vance is talking about Tren de Aragua taking over apartments, and the anchor says, "Oh, they've only taken over a handful of apartments, right?"
Yeah,
I remember that line. Downplaying it. Everything's just downplayed. Oh, they're not terrorists. They're just a gang. They're just a transnational gang. Right. Prison that's gang. Not. Yeah. Prison gang. Oh, MS-13 isn't a terrorist organization. It's just a transnational human trafficking ring. You know what I mean? Like that. Let them stay. Let them stay, please.
Unbelievable. So facilitate, meaning they would pick him up and
just let him in if he gets here.
Yeah. So what did the president say from old El Salvador there about it? Did he drop a line? And he's like, no.
I read it. I don't know if we have the clip. It might be here. Let's listen. But he basically said, you're asking me to smuggle a terrorist into the United States. And that is kind of I don't know whether that is like the language barrier in a way that makes it sound very funny, like the request. Like, yeah, they are asking you to smuggle a terrorist into the United States. Right. Let's keep listening.
You are doing a great job. Thank you. Stephen Miller, wait a minute. Can you just also respond to that question? Because, it's asked by CNN, and
here comes Stephen Miller.
Ask it with a slant.
Stephen Miller Smackdown.
Because they're totally slanting because they don't know what's happening. That's why nobody's watching them. But would you answer that question also, please?
Yes, gladly. So, as Pam mentioned, there's an illegal alien from El Salvador. So, with respect to you, he's a citizen of El Salvador. So, it's very arrogant even for American media to suggest that we would even tell El Salvador how to handle their own citizens as a starting point.
Look at him just smiling.
I know. Two immigration courts found that he was a member of MS-13. When President Trump declared MS-13 to be a foreign terrorist organization, that meant that he was no longer eligible under federal law, which I'm sure you know, you're very familiar with the INA, that he was no longer eligible for any form of immigration relief in the United States. So he had a deportation order that was valid, which meant that under our law, he's not even allowed to be present in the United States and had to be returned because of the foreign terrorist designation. This issue was then, by a district court judge, completely inverted, and a district court judge tried to tell the administration that they had to kidnap a citizen of El Salvador and fly him back here. That issue was raised to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said the district court order was unlawful, and its main components were reversed 9-0 unanimously, stating clearly that neither Secretary of State nor the President could be compelled by anybody to forcibly retrieve a citizen of El Salvador from El Salvador, who again is a member of MS-13, which, as I'm sure you understand, rapes little girls, murders women, murders children, is engaged in the most barbaric activities in the world, and I can promise you, if he was your neighbor, you would move right away.
So you don't plan to
What was the ruling in the Supreme Court, Steve? Was it 9-0?
Yes, it was a 9-0
In our favor.
In our favor, against the district court ruling, saying that no district court has the power to compel the foreign policy function of the United States. As Pam said, the ruling solely stated that if this individual, at El Salvador's sole discretion, was sent back to our country, that we could deport him a second time.
Well,
That's the other thing. Like, we can facilitate his entry into the U.S., but then they can just deport him again, right? It's almost just like it's pointless. Oh, well, one piece of paper didn't get fired, one motion didn't get filed, so bring them all the way back here, file the motion, and then send them all the way back.
The El Salvadorian president's just laughing his ass off.
I know.
You can see that's it on the inside.
And that's the best thing. Like, if El Salvador wants to give him back, and he's just over there grinning, like it's so obvious he's not giving it back.
No version of this legally ends up with him ever living here because he is a citizen of El Salvador. That is the president of El Salvador. Your questions about it, per the court, can only be directed to him.
I asked
¿Usted lo
President
liberaría,
Bukele,
Presidente
can President Bukele weigh in on this? Do you plan to return him?
Well, I'm supposed to be suggesting that I smuggle terrorists into the United States, right? How can I return him to the United States? Like, I smuggle him into the United States, or what do I do? Of course, I'm not going to do it. I mean, the question is preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? I don't have the power to return him to the United States.
You can release him inside El Salvador.
Yeah, but I'm not releasing. I mean, we're not very fond of releasing terrorists into our country. I mean, we just turned the murder capital of the world into the safest country of the Western Hemisphere, and you want us to go back into the releasing criminals so we can go back to being the murder capital of the world? No, that's not going to happen.
They'd love to have a criminal, released into our
country. I mean, there's a fascination.
They would love it.
Yeah.
They're sick. These are sick people. Mark, do you have something to say?
Yeah, I mean, Stephen Island, I don't understand what the confusion is.
So he's sorry, and one of the reporters says you can release him in El Salvador. It's like, I'm not releasing a terrorist into my streets. What are you talking about?
Not gonna
this
happen.
is preposterous. And Trump's like, these are sick people, and like, I don't know all the ins and outs. I reading into it, it seems that they are going very heavy-handed on gang members, on terrorists in El Salvador. That they are suspending liberties. I mean, it's all according to their law, according to their constitution. They say we have a really big problem. We have to fix it. And we're not going to fix it if every gang member is automatically presumed innocent. That wouldn't fly here. But no. I mean, he just explained they were the murder capital of the Western Hemisphere. And now they're one of the safest countries, safest cities in the Western Hemisphere. You're asking us to go back? What?
Did you see that smirk on Trump's face the whole time as he's saying this? Like, it's that whole "fu" face he's making. Like, that was right the whole time. Oh my god!
And this isn't just because Bukele enjoys incarcerating Maryland men or fathers. No, he recognizes that there are, as Trump would always call them, bad hombres, and that they have to do something about them. Also, the United States is paying for his incarceration, so. By U.S. standards, these are pennies on the dollar.
Yeah. Right.
Pennies on the dollar. So he's like, oh yeah, you want to pay? Trump during this meeting said, hey, I saw your I think it's called CROT, whatever. It's an acronym C-debt. In Spanish. Yeah. CDET. Is that it? Is that what it is?
Something like that. Yeah, I was looking at it's for the prison that he's at, or at least what he's being held in, right?
Trump asked him to expand it. Build more buildings, build more tents, build it up, expand it. We need more room. We'll pay for it. Yeah, and there is it's very refreshing to see. I mean, you can tell why he has one of the highest approval ratings in the world in terms of elected politicians. The people of El Salvador love him because he is no nonsense. He is not bullshitting, right? A regular politician would be like, oh, well, this is a very complicated issue, yada, yada, yada. He's laughing at them. He says, this is preposterous. I'm not releasing a terrorist into my country, because that was their follow-up. Say, oh, well, if you can't release him in the United States, why don't you just let him free in El Salvador? What?
Are you crazy?
What?
These people are sick, let me tell you. Like, it was a great stab. That was a huge dagger thrown by Trump at the media there on that one. Hey, just a few days ago, I got to talk to somebody who grew up in Colombia, lived in El Salvador, became a U.S. citizen in like the 80s, 90s-ish. And she described some of the crime and some of the things that these violent barbarian and these gangs do. And gang, there's a reason they don't want them on the streets there.
Yeah.
I mean, they will they kidnap your kids, drag them into the hills where hundreds of guys will just do horrible things to women and daughters. Right? They will rob you and your family. If you commit a crime, what they consider a crime against the gang, they don't murder the person that committed the crime. They go after your mother, your father, your wife, your kids. Right? They have no problem beheading people. They have no problem killing you in the middle of the streets as people watch, right? And they're asking that to be released on U.S. streets. They're asking that to be released on El Salvadorian streets. It's insane. It's insane.
It's so insane. And it's amazing how English isn't his first language, but he's able to cut through the fake news with such ease. And you realize that if there weren't people propping up these lies, they would never be allowed to stand. Right?
No.
But you have a judge saying, "Oh, you have to abduct him and bring him back." You have news organizations saying, "Oh, the Supreme Court ruled in his favor," when they clearly didn't. It's just lie after lie. Well, yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of fake news. I think, though, that like this is definitely one of the bigger fake news stories, especially in terms of like wanting people to reject what actually happened and to spin a complete false narrative around it. But we'll see. We'll see what happens with this. Couple minutes left. I wanted to show you something that I might get Fox Nation to watch this. This seems pretty interesting. There's a game show that Fox Nation is producing with Greg Gutfeld.
Gutfeld's got a show, huh? Or a game show.
Yes,
he's got everything.
Let's remove this. He has taken 4 people and he's isolated him for the first 90 days of Trump's presidency. They have no idea what Trump has done in his first 90 days. And they're going to basically have them try and pick through the real stories and the bullshit that the producers make up to see if they can figure out what actually happened.
Wow. I mean, are they all liberals? I can't wait to see who the people are and what the background is and what they think.
I want to watch this. It's Greg Gutfeld's What Did I Miss? They're not sponsoring anything, but I think this is a very interesting concept of taking people 90 days, quarantine them. They don't know what happened. And then just seeing reactions of what Trump did from
Turns out MS-13's a terrorist group now, and somebody comes out and they're gonna be like, "Yeah, I expected that one." Tariffs, yeah, I expected that one. Right? There'll be a few on there that they won't expect, but oh my gosh, yeah, that sounds like a really cool premise. At least it's gonna have kind of a reality TV flair to it because they have no clue what's going on.
They do a good job.
Yeah. Gutfeld's pretty funny. Yeah. I think he steals a lot of our stuff, but that's okay. I'm just gonna say that he watches you.
I wouldn't be all that surprised. I definitely felt when we were on Conservative Daily that there were people who watched us because I would do a bunch of research and then I'd find my talking points in the A block of prime time. Always found that interesting. Anything left before we wrap up?
There was just that arson fire in Pennsylvania. That one came down. That was kind of weird. They're trying to pin all conservatives as being the people that went after him. And
Isn't it funny that we know more about that guy in half a day than we know about any of the Trump assassins. Absolutely. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, and Routh was trying to get military grade weapons like RPGs and anti-air missiles. Who's he calling for that? Who's he asking, right? Yeah. And that just never hits the media. And then Jeff Bezos had Katy Perry and a couple other singers go up and went to space and came down, but only took them 40 minutes. People are already claiming they faked it.
Well, when you get to the certain height, you get weightlessness. I mean, that's been real. I mean, there've been lots of people who've done that. They've done music videos that way. That kind of technology is real. But
that's the highlights today. It's a Monday. The El Salvadorian story was was the one we were going at. But it's still a young week.
That's all we got. It's still a young week. We'll keep our eyes open. Leave a comment if you want us to cover anything else down in the comment section. We're on YouTube. We're on Rumble. We're on X. Live Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Tune in for that. That's it for this edition of the Right Guys podcast. My name is Max McGuire.
I'm Josh Ammerling.
Remember, the fight to take back our country is not over yet, but the only way we win is if we all stand up and fight together. See you next time.